Is your favorite Pokemon Rayquaza, the legendary guardian of the Earth's atmosphere? Or perhaps your favorite Pokemon is Lopunny, the cute, cuddly, and powerful? Well, if that's the case, you've been pronouncing their names wrong this entire time. And that's okay. So have I. Yes, even though I'm a professor of Pokemon, I still say their names wrong. Today we're going to look back at some of the Pokemon names that are commonly mispronounced. Well, mainly the ones that I myself have mispronounced or have heard mispronounced. If you have been saying some of these wrong and didn't realize till later, well, feel free to share in the comments below. I'm going to start with Generation 1 and work my way through the numerical Pokedex, so yeah, I may miss a few, but like I said, leave a comment on which ones you think I missed. You would think that since these Pokemon have been around for 30 years, that everybody would have their names down, but I still hear people pronounce some of them wrong. I mean, we still have people saying Pokemon out there, although I think at this point, they're saying it that way on purpose.
Go home and play Pokemon.
Yeah, Pokemon.
Yeah.
Don't do that. You can't disrespect Pokemon like that. Pokemon. You sound like old.
So the first Pokemon that stands out to me is this one. How do you pronounce this Pokemon's name? If you said Pidgeot or Pidgeotto, then you'd be wrong.
Pidgeot!
But don't feel too bad, even the anime gets it wrong sometimes.
I decided to fly over. It was easy. Hurricane winds are a breeze for Pidgeotto here.
And this Pokemon is Rattata. But if you're like me and you've been saying it like Rattata, well, you're wrong. It's actually Rattata. I swear I heard them say it like that in the first episode of the show though, so I blame 4 kids for this one.
A forest Pokemon, Rattata. It likes cheese, nuts, fruits, and berries.
These Pokemon are Ammonite and Amistar, but I've always called them Omanite and Omastar, which is only slightly different, but still incorrect, I suppose. And let me just say this, go ahead and pronounce them any way that makes you feel comfortable, because at the end of the day, it's not that deep. And also technically, these aren't even their original names anyway, since the Japanese names are entirely different. Well, except some names like Pikachu, that's the same everywhere. But if you say like Charizard instead of Charizard, that's fine. But moving on to Generation 2, and there's a lot more here than you would think. So this is Ledion, not Ledian.
Ledion?
Once again, a very slight difference in vowel pronunciation, but I've been saying it wrong this whole time. Also, apparently Ariados is Ariados. It's going to be hard for me to correct the way I've been pronouncing these since I've been saying them wrong for almost 3 decades at this point. Another common mispronunciation is Ampharos. That's what I call it, but I guess it's Ampharos. They really should have added another S to make that more clear. Now when I played Gold and Silver back in the day, I used to say Chinchu, until I heard it pronounced in the show as Chinchou.
What Pokemon is that?
Chinchou, the angler Pokemon.
And I still say Yanma, but apparently it's Yanma. And because of that I say Yanmega instead of Yanmega. Whoops. So I've always called these unknown, but they're actually unown. Like unown. So I've never pronounced Gligar's name wrong, but for some reason I used to call Gliscor. I should have realized that I was wrong there. And I always say Piloswine, but it's actually Piloswine. And this guy is Mantine, not Mantine.
Wait a minute!
I swear I heard them say Mantine in the show as a kid. And looking back, they did.
Whoa, a Mantine!
Did you say Mantine?
But in later episodes they say the other pronunciation, so both are right? Well, anyway, let's move on to the Hoenn region with Gen 3. So this one's not so bad. It's pronounced Breloom, but I've heard some people call it Breloom, and that's understandable, I guess. This one's called Lairon, but I always called it Lyron. This one does stand out though. This is Illumise. For years I thought it was called Illumise. Another common one is Milotic. I can't be the only one that was saying Milotic, right? Actually, it's Milotic. I've always called this Pokemon Tropius, but apparently it's Tropius, so it's just a slight vowel change. And I think the reason why I mispronounce a lot of these is simply because I gradually stopped watching the anime as I got older. But I still played all the games, so I learned all the names. I did watch a little bit of the advanced generation, but by the 4th generation I stopped watching the show completely. And that's why I didn't realize that Chimecho's name is actually Chimecho. I didn't realize that until I saw the Lucario movie.
Oh no! Chimecho! Save yourself!
I thought its name was Chimecho. And an often overlooked Pokemon is Gorobus. The name makes sense because, you know, abyss refers to the bottom of the ocean where this Pokemon lives, but for some reason I used to just call it Gorbis. Alright, and I'm gonna get a lot of heat for this, but I refuse to change the way I say it. This is Bagon. Don't you come at me in the comments and say, actually it's Bagon? I'm just kidding. It's actually Bagon, but I never knew that until recently. Another popular Pokemon from Gen 3 is Metagross. I've always called it Metagross, and I prefer Metagross, but I could accept Gross, and in fact, I think I've started to call it that over time. Regice is funny because I don't think anyone can blame anybody for calling it Regice. It just rolls off the tongue better when you say all the Pokemon in the former trio the same. Regirock, Regice, Registeel. That sounds better to me, but apparently it's Regirock, Registeel, and Regice. But probably the most commonly mispronounced Pokemon is the box art legendary of Pokemon Emerald, and one of the Pokemon I mentioned at the start of the video. Rayquaza is actually how you pronounce its name, which, yeah, I know it's based on the word quasar, so that makes sense, but you know what? I'm stubborn, and I'll just keep calling it Rayquaza. Actually, I kind of go back and forth. Sometimes I say Rayquaza, sometimes I say Rayquaza. It's like a tomato-tomato kind of situation. But to be honest, there's probably more of these that I'm saying wrong and I don't even realize it. I'm listening to the Pokédex 3D Pro game that was released on the 3DS to listen to how they say the official names up to Generation 5. But after that, I don't really know. I don't watch the show anymore other than random clips. Someday I do plan to go back and watch Ash's entire journey with my kids from start to finish. But until then, I'm just winging it. But alright, let's talk about Gen 4. I did used to say Staravia, but apparently it's Staravia. And that's easy for me to switch. It does sound better to me. This one, though. Apparently I've been saying Bidoof and Bibarel wrong. I just have to change the vowel sounds to Bidoof and B-Barrel. I think I'll still call it Bidoof, though, because I just like the way that sounds better. And so apparently this Pokemon is not Roserade, like I've been saying for the last 20 years. It's Roserade. Roserade always made more sense to me because it sounds more like Masquerade, but Roserade it is, I guess. This one's wild too. I've been calling this Pokemon Bonsly, but it's actually Bonsly, which does make more sense because it's based on like a bonsai tree, so I guess, yeah, that works. But they should have spelled it like this. This one is called Happiny, which makes sense because it kind of sounds like teeny. But I've been saying Happiny. This is Drapion, not Drapion. Like I mentioned before, this is Yanmega, not Yanmega, and this is Gliscor, not Gliscor. And here's a big one. Yes, that's right, it's Lopunny, which a lot of people seem to refuse to accept, but it's actually based on a Lop rabbit, so yeah, Lopunny. But Lopunny sounds better to a lot of people, so they refuse to change. I get it. And here's a big one. The literal creator of the Pokemon universe, Arceus. I call this Pokemon Arceus, even though I know it's wrong. It's just hard for me to correct myself after calling it that for so many years. But it's actually Arceus. That's right, Pokemon Legends Arceus, not Arceus. Alright, on to Generation 5. I've somehow got the pronunciation down for most of these, but some of these I've been saying completely wrong. This is Conkeldurr, but I just say Conkeldurr. This is Dwebble, which sounds like Pebble, but I call it Dweeble because it sounds like dweeb. Minccino and Cinccino are the correct way to pronounce these Pokemon, not Mincino or Cincino, which I should have realized. I mean, it's based on a chinchilla, so Cinccino makes sense. And so these ones are Ferroseed and Ferrothorn, which sounds like ferocious and seed and ferocious and thorn. See, I was thinking it was like feral seed and feral thorn, so I was calling them Ferroseed and Ferrothorn. Nope, that's wrong. Now this is kind of sad, but I was just saying Klang's name wrong, probably because it's just such a forgettable Pokemon. I thought it was Clink, Clank, and Clink Clank, but no, it's Clink, Clang, and Clink Clang. And probably my worst pronunciation this generation is Tynamo, which it's pronounced Tynamo. And I didn't realize this was wrong until I uploaded a short, and was swiftly told so in the comments. Electros is a pure electric-type Pokemon introduced in Generation 5. It evolves from E-Electric when exposed to a Thunderstone, and it is the final form of Tynamo. This is Drudigan, not Drudagon. and I call this Pokemon Buffalont, which is an honest mistake because it's based on a buffalo. But nope, it's Buffalont. Zweilous is hard to pronounce because I don't speak German, so I always just called it Zweilous. Okay, so here are some legendaries that I have mispronounced. Cobalion, Terrakion, and Virizion. But this is how they actually say them. Cobalion,
Cobalion,
Terrakion,
Terrakion,
Virizion.
Virizion.
And so yeah, that's where I'll end today's video, mainly because those are the only Pokemon that the official Pokedex 3D Pro covers, and so there's probably way more that I'm mispronouncing that I don't even realize. One that I do know I say wrong is Dupiter, and yeah, I don't know, it's Dupitor, I guess? Let me know which other names are confusing for you guys, and if you like Pokemon, subscribe. My name is Professor Alphalax, and thank you, have a great day.